Okay. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. Today I'm going to talk about rice, mosquitoes, and malaria. So if we could have the first slide, please. So malaria is caused by a number of species of Plasmodium parasite. And according to the most recent data from the World Health Organization, in 2022, it is estimated that there were 249 million cases of malaria and 608,000 deaths. 95% of which were in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, the malaria parasite has a very complex life cycle, and you'll be pleased to know I'm not going to go into it, except to highlight that it requires both human and mosquito hosts. Next slide, please. Deaths due to malaria have significantly fallen since the year 2000, with the great scale up of investment and interventions brought about by the Global Fund, the President's Malaria Initiative, and many others. Increasing access to long-lasting insecticide-treated bed nets, or LNs, and indoor residual wall spraying, or IRS, but also anti-parasitic drugs, diagnostic tools, etc. But the rate of decline has leveled off in the last few years, and there's evidence that the numbers are beginning to even increase again. Now, there are many potential reasons for this, including insecticide resistance. That is, the mosquitoes are becoming less effectively controlled by some of the existing vector control interventions. Now, I should note that not all mosquitoes can transmit or vector malaria. It's only certain species of the Anopheles mosquito which can. We'll have a photograph of one appear in a second. There we are. Now, historically, it's been shown that the most effective way to prevent malaria is to control the mosquito vectors. And for that, we need to understand their life cycle and ecology. A female mosquito takes a blood meal, which provides the protein and energy needed for her eggs to develop. She then seeks somewhere to lay her eggs. And most Anopheles species prefer temporary sunlit bodies of water to lay their eggs. The eggs rapidly hatch, and the larvae will feed on organic material in the water. And under ideal conditions, they'll pupate after about 7 days. A few days later, adult mosquitoes emerge from the pupae, and the cycle starts again. Here we can see some typical sites where the larvae will be found. Now, rice paddies can offer an ideal habitat for the Anopheles mosquito larvae, especially before the rice grows tall enough to shade the water surface. Can we have the next slide, please? Research in 2022 found that in villages where rice was grown, mosquito numbers were 6 to 8 times higher than in non-rice grown villages. Historically, rice cultivation and mosquitoes have gone together. Now, it's always been known that there were many more mosquitoes in villages that cultivated rice, and you'd think that this would result in much more malaria in those villages. But prior to around 2005, the number of malaria cases was apparently similar, and this became known as the paddy paradox. So why was this the case? Was rice cultivation really having no effect on malaria prevalence? Next slide, please. Recent interpretation, though, of the data suggests that the rice cultivation brought economic benefits with it, facilitating access to mosquito control measures, anti-parasitic drugs, etc. But those without the economic benefit had less access to the mosquito vector control interventions or drugs, and therefore had greater exposure to mosquitoes and parasites, even though there were fewer mosquitoes present overall. Next slide. Since 2003, with the great scale up of the vector control interventions, access to long-lasting insecticide-treated nets, indoor residual wall spraying, drugs, etc., have increased. and malaria has fallen. Now, the same recent data showed that with more equitable distribution of the mosquito control interventions and related healthcare, not only are mosquitoes numbers 6 to 8 times higher in rice-growing villages, but malaria prevalence is 1.7 times higher too. The cultivation of rice does increase malaria prevalence. It was hidden by the less than equitable access to public health interventions. Now, can we move on one more slide, please? Now, there's also an impact of malaria on agriculture. Illness, or the need to take care of an ill family member, can have a significant impact on agricultural productivity. And research has found that among smallholders in parts of Nigeria, an average of 22 days per year were lost to malaria. And this resulted in a reduction in their income of 12.7%. Now, of course, this is going to be dependent on many factors, but also in Tanzania, it's been estimated that a single malaria case amongst the farming community can lead to a loss in rice productivity of up to 8%. However, for individual smallholders, falling ill at a crucial time in the cropping cycle may lead to yield losses of up to 40%. Now, I recently saw a short video interview with a farmer from Ghana who was talking about their national malaria vector control program. And what particularly impressed me was that he said that now there were fewer cases of malaria, he could invest his time and his money in his farm, not in taking his children to hospital. Now, malaria is a disease of poverty, and agricultural development can help to address food security and increase living standards. And to this end, increased rice production is seen as particularly important in Africa, as demonstrated by a couple of published quotes from just the last few weeks. One from Kenya, state to double acreage under rice production, or another one which said intensifying rice production to reduce imports and land conversion in in Africa. However, we must find ways of increasing rice production and yield without it resulting in more mosquitoes and increased malaria. So how are mosquito vectors of malaria controlled? Well, classic adult mosquito vector control has used long-lasting insecticide-treated bed nets and indoor residual wall spraying. And these protect people inside their homes. And malaria mosquitoes mostly bite in the evening and at night when people are often at home, where they're protected by these interventions. However, the mosquitoes are becoming resistant to some of the insecticides used, as I mentioned. And there's also evidence that they're beginning to bite earlier in the day or earlier in the evening when people are not inside their homes. And this is rendering some of these measures less effective. Now, wouldn't it be better if we could minimize the total number of mosquitoes to start with, making the environment less suitable for the mosquito? Can we move to the next slide? Actively targeting the mosquito larvae, called larviciding, and most importantly, taking an integrated or holistic approach to mosquito control that includes agriculture amongst all the other factors that need to be looked at. Next slide. As rice is associated with greatly increased numbers of mosquitoes, what can we do to mitigate this? Well, mosquito control and mitigation measures will be highly context and location specific. So I'm not going to prescribe activities that should be followed, but the following have been shown to be effective. And the first one I would say is make sure that this is considered as an integral part of any agricultural development program. Ask, how will this program impact mosquito numbers and wider public health? And more specifically, things like removing larval habitats, which are often created by agricultural activities outside of the agriculture itself. So drain or fill any small bodies of water, puddles, tyre tracks, etc. The use of larvicides and the biological larvicides such as BT have been shown to be effective. And the image on the top right is of a program that is using large agricultural drones to apply larvicide to rice paddies in Madagascar. I've got to say this word slowly so I get it right. Larvivorous fish. They're not suitable for everywhere, but addition of such fish to paddies has been shown to be effective. And they've been used for a long time in China, for example, and can even offer an additional source of protein to the smallholders. Management of irrigation, clearing irrigation channels to increase the water flow, making it less suitable or making it a less suitable habitat for the mosquito larvae. Leveling irrigated land so that water doesn't pool for long periods of time after irrigation. And alternating wet-dry techniques, which have many benefits, including reducing the number of mosquitoes. Again, the impact will be highly context dependent, but some recent research in Tanzania found that this approach reduced the number of late-stage larvae, also the larger larvae, by 72%. And we'll hear more about this approach in a few minutes. Now, agriculture other than just rice can also negatively impact mosquito control. And I mentioned that insecticide resistance is becoming a big problem. And mosquitoes can be exposed to agricultural crop protection residues, either as adults resting on treating foliage or as larvae living in contaminated water. And this can lead to selection for resistant mosquitoes. I mean, can we think of keeping some insecticide classes only for use for mosquito vector control to minimize this unintended consequence? Some fertilizer and manures have been shown to increase mosquito larval survival. And recent research found that adding cow dung to paddies was beneficial to the rice, but it was also beneficial to the larvae, the mosquito larvae. But interestingly, they found that chicken manure had the opposite effect. And maize pollen that falls into the water is a type of mosquito superfood. The larvae, enabling the larvae that feed on it to grow larger and faster. They just love it. Next slide, please. So far, I've only talked about malaria in the African context. However, there are other diseases vectored by mosquitoes that are associated with rice. One example is Japanese encephalitis. Now, Japanese encephalitis, or JEV, is a virus disease. It's vectored by a different type of mosquito to malaria, and so mosquitoes from the genus Culex, some of which are also found in rice or in rice paddies. Now, Japanese encephalitis is mainly found in Asia, but suitable conditions do exist in parts of Africa. Now, according to the World Health Organization, there are about 68,000 clinical cases of this virus per year, with up to a 30% fatality rate. And to quote the World Health Organization, the spread of Japanese encephalitis in new areas has been correlated with agricultural development and intensive rice cultivation, supported by irrigation programs. Now, such agricultural development needs to be carefully implemented, taking into account such potential public health consequences. Next slide, please. So, in conclusion, in 2016, the World Health Organization set the ambitious target of reducing malaria by 90% by the year 2030. And others have set targets for the complete global eradication of malaria. And agriculture can greatly influence this for better or worse, with rice playing a key role. We shouldn't keep agricultural development and public health in different silos. We need to integrate agriculture into public health and public health into agriculture. But the real take-home message is, let's grow rice, without growing mosquitoes. And with that, I'll thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was a very insightful presentation. Like we came to know about Dinophilis mosquito and then about the technology, and then now we will actually move towards Abdul Rauf, who is going to talk about the AWD, that is alternate wetting and drying technology, and its potential for triple wins. Okay, let's welcome him.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor and sharing my experience in Bangladesh with AWD. So my topic is that our works with AWD in potential for triple wins. So uh, in my topics, AWD word is coming from our earlier presenters. I hope that you all know about the AWD. However, I just want to put few more lines about the AWD. It is nothing but a irrigation controlling method that can help you to understand when and how you can control your irrigations. So generally, we cultivate rice with flood irrigations, but alternate wetting and drying is a methods where a pipe can help you to understand the water level and then stop your irrigations and give your land to dry and then again irrigate. So this is the technology invented by the ED in Philippines, and they promoted it in over the globe. However, the adaptations rate has some challenges. That's why I am sharing here our experiences in Bangladesh, how we adopted these things and get these triple benefits. So before going to triple benefits, I want to share with you the triple concern regarding the rice cultivations. So already Mark has talked about the concern regarding health, and another two concern is the climate change and the finance. In climate change context, you know that the methane emissions is very crucial, and the rice cultivations increases the methane emissions, and that ultimately turned into the greenhouse gas. So we are suffering with this, and the waters is a very precious things we need to consider. But only 1 kilogram of rice productions it requires around 2500 liters of water. So it's really concern, and the concern is the finance, like uh, for irrigation. So we need to invest around 15 to 20% of the cost, and these irrigations, with flood irrigations, it also lose the potentiality of yield increases. So we also can save this irrigation cost around 50%. So these concerns can be solved through introducing the water efficient technology called AWD. So we gonna share with our Bangladesh experiences. So, Bangladesh basically the flood affected country. However, we have few areas where the water is the really issue, and water scarcity is the concerns there. And if we don't take it into account, then it can be the desert in long run. So those areas we usually called it barren tracts. So its natural rainfall is 1/3 than the country's average rainfalls, and continuously uplifting the groundwaters. So its water levels declining day after day, and then it causes the underuse or unutilized the land. So it becomes the fallow lands become the fallow, and already I talked that it's causing the rice cultivation cost. So ultimately what happens, so fostering the desertifications, if we don't consider it as a serious issue, it increases the greenhouse gas emissions. It created the yield gaps, and food security is really the issue if we not consider it in account. So what we did, so it is, that in Bangladesh, even more than 20 years back, this technology came, but the mass adaptation was not there. So why it was? The innovation is theirs. Innovation was the alternate wetting and drying technology, and the delivery method was the just for individual demonstrations and awareness training. It was the traditional way the people try to promote this AWD, but it didn't work well. So individual demonstrations cannot uh, 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 cannot help you to save your waters. So then we come up with our few ideas. That is the water pricing model. Then we PCS laser land leveling and crop diversification. So why this is? Because earlier the water pricing model was like whatever water you use for your rice cultivations, you will need to pay the same amount. So the people or the farmers were not interested to save their water. So we come up with this water pricing model where the people will pay as he use that waters. Second thing is that in Bintech area, the land is not even. So we label the land with the laser machines, and then installing the AWD pipe is easier, and people can understand the uh, water levels and easily can stop their irrigations by seeing the water level, looking into the hole of that pipe. And the crop diversifications is another way to bring them in their profitability of their from their cultivations. So innovation is not enough if you don't have the delivery mechanisms. So in delivery mechanisms, our effort was to scheme wise demonstration. So we work with the water service providers, and the water service providers set schemes where a number of farmers together start to practice these demonstrations. So it was the community-based approach. We create awareness, not individual farmers, rather the community farmers, so that they can understand the impact and the effect of these technologies. And we also incorporated the other stakeholders, including the government and the water service provider. Many cases, the water service provider was not considered in these interventions, but we considered them and we recognize them, their effort, and we create their business model as well, so that they cannot lose their businesses for less irrigations or water provide to the farmers. And we also introduce the farmers hub model. What is the one-stop service platforms from where the farmers get the multiple service, from inputs to irrigations to technology demonstrations, all the service they get from there. So these farmers hub owners also promote this technology to the farmers. So it is not the individual farmers or the only one AWD we try to promote, rather we try to build the ecosystems. So in these ecosystems, we first try to promote, identify this water efficient technology, then localize it, and then demonstrate it, and then we also organize the farmers, and then we create the market linkages, and we also create the regional alliances. So all across this process, two organizations help us to pilot these things. One was the Coca-Cola Foundations, they finance us, and another was the HSBC banks, they finance us to promote this technology to the farmers. And 2030 water research groups, we acknowledge them to coordinate these projects to bring to farmers. So it was the holistic approach where governments, research organizations, government extension officials, and academicians, we incorporate them. And in that particular biotech area, there was a institute called Bind Multipurpose Development Authority. So they are the key stakeholder there. So we took their help to build this water pricing model. So together we try to create an enabling environment for promoting this technology. So if you want to promote some things, you need to consider the holistic systems. So this holistic effort help us to get the ultimate results. So the ultimate result was measured by the independent research organizations. They help us to measure the results. So we find it out from theirs is that we can save 16% of water, that is one or two times of the irrigations, one or two irrigations per seasons. We also save uh, the irrigation cost, that is around $25, and we also get the increased yield, that was 7%, like 450 kg rice per hectares, additional rice per hectares. Together it helped to give them additional $240 per hectares, from hectares of land. So the farmers are the happy, they could help to grow their profitability as well as saves the environments and save their health as well. So for environmental impact, we also find it out that the 37% of methane emissions has reduced. So this approach is replicating by one farmers to another farmer. So our coping ratio was 2:1, and we also find it out that homes which successfully transferred this knowledge, among them 68% adopted this technology. So what I want to make the point is that if you can design the right project and if you can bring the right people there, so AWD is a proven technology, can be scaled. So end of that presentations, I would like to say that this AWD technology brings the triple wins. One is that climate wins, second is the finance win, and third is the health wins. So in climate wins, already I said that 37% carbon emissions reduction was there, and the finance wins, the farmers is getting these values. And for health, so it reduced the mosquito, their life cycle disrupted by drying the waters and help them to keep away from this malaria. Though Bangladesh is fortunately saved from this malaria, 90% of this malaria controlled over years. So maybe we are not getting that benefit from AWD. However, AWD can be replicated in anywhere in the globes. So finally, I want to echo with Mark that let's grow rice, use AWD, and away from this mosquito. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rofai. That was an insightful presentation from you and also from Mark. So apparently we're going to start with the question answer session. And as I can see on the board that the question is for Mark. Rice farming contributes substantially in supporting malaria mosquito productivity in tropical countries. Can the application of a combination of biolarvicide and fertilizer be an alternative approach in malaria mosquito intervention among rice farming communities? So I think Mara would like to answer the question.
I think that's a question for Mark, right?
Mark, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark, please go ahead.
No, it's a very good question, and it has certainly been thought about, and there's some research has been undertaken looking at that. I'm trying to remember, but I think I read some research from Tanzania a few years ago where it was shown to be effective, and I think they needed to have some education as well to demonstrate that it was a safe and sensible thing to do. But it certainly would be expected to reduce the mosquito numbers. So yeah, it's certainly an approach.
So I think we have another question from Matthew. The question is particularly for Ro. profile. In your study, did you consider the number of which, that is the greenhouse gas emission that he understands may increase as a
Yes.
consequence of alternate wetting and drying? And did you take any measure in the impact on mosquitoes?
Thank you, Matthews, for this nice question. So, thing is that in our initial study, we didn't consider the nitrous oxide measurement, but however, we are conducting the second study and we are trying to use the two methodology. One is the FAO X-ACT tools and the tool from tools, where we will try to measure this nitrous oxide, and that is also contributing to the greenhouse gas emissions. And for malaria, yes, already I told you that in Bangladesh the malaria is not there, so we are implementing in AWD, so we didn't consider years. Thank you.
So he also had an additional question that is there any research of integrating larvae eating fish with AWD? It would complicate the water management significantly, but can be done with fish refuges. So,
Shall I comment on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, of course, of course.
I am not aware of any research that has specifically looked at the use of larvivorous, I've been practicing that all day to make sure I could say it, larvivorous fish with AWD. But where it has been used, where an AWD approach hasn't, it has been shown to be quite effective. Although it does require quite a lot of infrastructure to produce the fish, to move them to the paddies, whilst keeping them alive, etc. So it's more of a programmatic approach rather than sort of a smaller scale one-off approach. But it has been very effective, as I said, especially in China.
All right, thank you so much. We also have a couple of questions. As Tom says that growers reported a 7% increase in yield when using AWD in the program. However, in other studies, some yield risk has been reported, and this is considered a blocker for uptake in some studies. What do you think was the difference with your program in Bangladesh, which caused this yield increase? Was it specific to Boro rice?
Yes, it is specific to Boro rice because it is the irrigated rice in Bangladesh, and we find it out from the two study, independent study, and those two study revealed that this yield increase is around 7%, and because of the more growth of the rice plant, and thus these farmers get more yield, and the right management of the fertilizers it helps to grow them the yield. So in Bangladesh case we find this study from the several different studies.
Okay, thank you so much. And as Cassie has another question, like says that it's that we have really impressive results, and also asks that what would you say the barriers to scaling this type of work, like when we are doing the AWD, and what are the barriers that we have, or probably we can mitigate that? Would you like to answer this?
Sure, thank you very much. So the thing is that main obstacle was the water service provider one-off, because individually you cannot use this AWD. You need to use it community wise, and you need to define the pricing model as per as water uses, because in Bangladesh cases earlier, the whatever water you use you need to pay a fixed price. So that time the farmers were not interested on getting less water by providing the same amount of money. So this was the one barrier, and the second barrier was that the right time of irrigating these things. So you cannot use this AWD anytime. So you need it has the fixed time after seed transfer 10 days, 5 to 10 days after seed transplantations, and before the pollinations, you need to stop this AWD. So proper knowledge transformation was the another things. So earlier maybe they thought that anytime you can dry your land, but it is not true. So right time, right pricing model, and a community approach can help to scale these things.
Right. Thank you, Rahul. We will share the slides if possible. And Abhijit had a question for you as well, Rofai. Have you considered the two approach of using pani pipe and laser land leveling? And there are another two approach of the nutrient management and use of short duration variety, as it has a huge impact on reduction of greenhouse gas emission and reduce water use. So do we have any statistical data or what we can say about that?
Thank you, Abhijit, for your
Abhijit.
nice comments. Nice comment. So yes, we considered the AWD pani pipe or AWD pani pipe and laser leveling for particular land where the land topography is not even. So up and down land. So there, so we use these things. Short duration variety and nutrition management is very important. So we are also integrated that nutrition management. But another technology could help it better. That is deep placement of urea. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it, but in future, so you will consider it and the nutrition management as well. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Rofai. And there were another question, what are the challenges that you observed while implementing at the scale of the AWD?
So one challenge is that you need to make aware the people. So many places the water is not the issue. The people do not consider that water is the issue. So why I will think about using the AWD, because the people are not well aware about the environmental impact and they do not consider it as their plate. So awareness is one thing, and second things or third things already I covered it, that their business modeling, so and their profitability. If you can show them the uh, profitability of their uh, alternate water using alternate and waiting and drying technology, what will be their benefit if you can place them right way, that would be the scaling agent. And last thing is that you need to consider everyone's, not only one things. And people sometimes feel boring to just monitor that water level. So maybe in futures we need to consider that IoT based or satellite image based something, so that you can auto scheduling of the what irrigations, then it will help them to just everyday monitoring their water level. So if you can consider all those things, then it will be easier to scale. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. So there was another point that Satu wanted to point out, that rice fields are like mosquito breeding ground, and usually any decrease in their ability to spread disease is not enough to make up for the increase in their numbers. This means people in rice growing areas end up facing more disease carrying mosquitoes. So if we want to grow more rice in Africa and also fight malaria, we have got to figure out how to do both without creating more mosquitoes. The key is finding ways to grow rice without giving mosquitoes a chance to thrive. While there have been some ways to control mosquitoes in rice fields, they usually do not work all the time or in every situation. What we really need is a way to combine these methods to keep mosquitoes in check throughout the season and all kinds of rice growing areas. So I think AWD is such a technology which can be equally helpful for that. And yes, we will also, as you have also mentioned, that the future studies need to look at all the factors that affect how many mosquitoes are there and how likely they're to spread malaria and how common malaria is. So definitely Mark, would you like to answer this one? Like
I think it's a very good comment. and I'm not sure I can answer it. I can sort of reply with some more comments. And yes, we need to mitigate the impact of rice growing, but it's not just rice. It's many irrigated agricultural crops as well, where this that can leave places where the mosquito larvae can successfully develop. But as I mentioned, we need to bring agriculture and public health together, and we shouldn't be thinking in two separate silos. That we have let's say it's the National Ministry of Health is worrying about malaria, and the Ministry of Agriculture is worrying about rice growing. They need to be considered together, and there are many other activities that can be done to reduce mosquito numbers that don't just involve rice, but the agriculture should be considered within those. And for example, things like exactly where you choose to grow rice can have an impact as well. So is it if you have a choice to grow them away from where people are living, that for the benefit of reduced mosquito numbers may be better. There may be other reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. So it should really be considered together and not separately. But the point is very well made in the question.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. So there were a few more questions, like as Matthew asked us, like, did we see any impact on weeds? And this one reason for keeping the fields flooded. So I think Yohai could answer that.
Yeah. Yes. Earlier there was an issue, but if you can manage it rightly, right amount of waters, you can keep it in your land, then you can solve these weeding issues. And if it's becomes serious, then also you can use that weedicides. So we have many types of weedicide right now that can be used. So yeah.
All right, thank you so much. And we have another question from Abhijit. How many times and for how long the field must be dried in whole life cycle of a paddy?
Well, so it's a good question. So usually after 2 weeks of transplanting the seed, you can start this AWD, and definitely you should stop before if I consider so 0 days is the seed plant seed plantations, and then maybe 10 to 15 and 30 days to 35 days you will get that seedlings and transplant that seedlings, and then you can after 2 weeks you can start this AWD. And before 73 to 78 days you should stop your drying, because that time this pollination will start, or kythor you may call it. So it starts. So before it you should stop. So in between these times, depending on the soil and the moistures, you can use it 2 to 5 days after seeing the water levels. So if it's becomes uh, less than 15 centimeters, then you can flood it again and then let it dry, and then again try to see the water level up to 15 centimeters, and then again you should irrigate. So the timeline by day wise, it is after seed to seed plantations. So after seed plantation, 45 days, 30 to 35 days, you can start, sorry, 40 to 45 days, you can start, and you should stop before 73 to 78 days.
All right. Thank you for the insightful information of the life cycle of a paddy. So there was another question from Harv. Is the Linda Mill Gates Foundation Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation currently involved in any malaria program in Bangladesh? And BMGF announced a $8.6 billion budget for 2024 with emphasis on human health.
So in Bangladesh, the malaria was in the hilt area. Only you can say 90% is controlled. So 10%, 93% is almost controls, and the 7% is theirs in this Hilltex area, and there are mostly in on those areas. So the project related to the malaria is not in this general land, but however it is in the hilt areas mostly.
Mark, would you like to add anything to it?
Just to say that over the years, Bangladesh has done an excellent job at reducing malaria, and as has been said, it's now only found in a very small couple of areas. I'm not aware if there's any specific programs from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in Bangladesh.
So there was another question on how many times and which malaria species is more common in rice paddies, and does it differ from the one prevalent in the population?
I guess that's one's for me.
Yeah.
So this would be the mosquito species, I'm guessing. And so as I said, it's only certain species of Anopheles mosquito that can vector malaria. And of those that can, some prefer or find rice to be an excellent habitat for them, and others actually prefer it less. So you may, depending on where you are, certainly within Africa, you may find that the most important malaria vectoring or transmitting species may not be the one that prefers to live in rice. Whereas in other parts, you may find that they coincide, and that's where there's perhaps a bigger concern for rice cultivation. So if I have this the right way around, in West Africa, for example, one of the key species might be Anopheles gambii, and that does like living in rice paddies. Whereas in parts of East Africa, Anopheles fenestus might be a more important vector species, and that tends to be found in lower numbers in rice paddies and prefers slow flowing rivers or shaded areas like that. So it depends whereabouts in globally where you are, and yeah, as I said, not every species prefers rice paddies, but others do. I hope that's answered the question.
Thank you so much. I think we are almost at the end of the session, and I would like to ask Mara to give closing remarks and wrap up the session for all of us. So it was a very insightful one for the academicians, the researchers, and the one you're doing the work with innovation. And thank you so much. That's all from my side.